The perception is that members of Congress are enriching themselves. That's not only an affront to our neighbors that we're not playing by the rules, it is a cancer that can destroy the democracy. Each member of Congress has a responsibility to hold themselves not just equal to their neighbors, but to a higher standard. The public wants us to come here and debate how we educate our children, how we serve our veterans, how we build our roads, how we protect this nation, how we spend those taxpayer dollars. That's what makes us strong. All these differing ideas to come together for a compromise and move forward. If there is a perception that someone is enriching themselves, it undermines our ability to do those things. So what's happened here, we're not here today to pat ourselves on the back. This might be the only place where doing the right thing gets you kudos. It's expected of everyone else. But we're here to say this is a victory not for us. It is one tiny step on a journey, which is about restoring the faith of the American people in the institution. They can believe with all their heart that we are wrong. They cannot believe that we are corrupt. They will have us and we will pass and we will be dust, and this place, this building, this podium right here will still stand. And that's what we're doing here today. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member and members of the committee, for having us here on this important issue. Special thank you to Congresswoman Slaughter and Congressman Jones for being so engaged to this. Prior to coming to Congress, I was a high school social studies teacher and an enlisted soldier in the Army National Guard. And I came to Congress for the same reason all of you did, to make a difference, try and serve our country and try and make things better. Coming and talking about the issues that the American public was frustrated about, not just policy, but how the system worked. And the rampant cynicism that all of us recognize, the idea of a 9% approval rating, that's a disgrace to not only all of us, it's a disgrace to those that have worked so hard to build the democracy. And it's our responsibility to restore faith. So as I got here and started talking about things like disclosing earmarks online, and that became a common practice, those types of things, I was approached by Louise Slaughter and Brian Baird, and they said, we've got something you might be interested in. And they started to explaining to me about the idea of trading on knowledge. I think, like most Americans, I could not believe it. It seemed like that would be impossible. There would be a loophole there. It seemed impossible that anyone would do it, but the facts and the studies that were done seem to show that, lo and behold, members of Congress outperform the stock market by about 6 to 10% on a regular basis. Now, that may be due to the infinite wisdom that resides in these halls, or it could be something different, luck, smart, savvy trading, or the possibility that there was insider knowledge. I don't know. My point on this is that the idea of serving in Congress is the single greatest honor that your neighbors can bestow upon you. And our responsibility back to them is not to have them agree with every political decision we make, but to have them believe we're doing it in their best interest, everything we do. We could be 100% wrong in their opinion, but if they believe we're doing it for the right reasons and the system's not gamed, the faith in the democracy is solid. So I got onto this bill and spent countless hours with SEC, with professors of law, with Louise, and with our esteemed colleague, retired colleague, Brian Baird, talking about ways to make this work. I do it with no pleasure, because this is about restoring faith. It's not about individuals. It's not about singling out. I don't know if it's ever been done before, but the perception that it was being done is strong. Go home to the grocery store, all of you who are at Thanksgiving. Tell me how that conversation went at the dinner table. And I'll tell you that they're talking about this because their faith in the system is not there. So I think trying to restore this and trying to get it right, any suggestions are welcome. But I agree with my colleague, Ms. Slaughter. We need to move something. And I can tell you, if you think 9% approval rating is bad, don't pass anything on this. Drag it out and don't do anything and watch what happens. And that is not about political re-elections. It's not about ideology. It's about the American people of becoming so cynical in the greatest system of governance in the world that it's putting things at risk. So with that, I encourage you, take a look at this Stock Act. I'll be the first to tell you this is the bare minimum. But for those of you who say take another step, I'm with you. I agree on this. The problem was the first step took 6 years to take that half step with 7 co-sponsors. We need to get something done now. We need a mechanism that does it. And I agree with Louise, the problem of the tippers and the tippees has to be addressed in this also. For those who say this is already there, That may hold true in a theoretical argument, but in the American public perception, it is not there. Something must be done. If it's transparency, I believe the Stock Act is the most thoughtful, and the unintended consequences have been looked at in a greater nature. And I'll give you just a quote here. This is from former SEC Chairman Levitt. Our markets are a success precisely because they enjoy the world's highest level of confidence. Investors put their capital at work and their fortunes at risk because they trust that the marketplace is honest. They know that our securities laws require free, fair, and open transactions. I would substitute this for the American public. Our market is a success. Our democracy is a success because people believe they're open, fair, and transparent. And that's what we're asking to do. I can tell you that newspapers in my district, Mankato Free Press, said this is a no-brainer. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune, this bill is smart politics and policy and is a dose of what's needed to start reversing voters' rampant cynicism. That's what this is about. It's not a witch hunt. It's not about trying to get involved too deeply in the SEC's responsibility. It's trying to clarify for the American public that their public servants are held not just to the same law. I would argue we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We need to make it perfectly clear so that when they hear our debates, they differ with us on the substance of the debate, not on our motives. So I'm thankful, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, that you're taking this up. I look forward to working with each and every member of improving and perfecting this bill. But I can't stress enough that we have a Senate counterpart, and I'd like to thank Senators Gillibrand, Tester, and Brown. They've already moved forward. They promised us a markup. I think it's one of those rare occurrences where, as Congresswoman Slaughter said, we now are nearly approaching that magic number of 218. We should get there hopefully soon, that we've got the momentum to move this. So I thank you with that and look forward to any questions you might have.
Gentleman from Minnesota is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the gentleman from Michigan. I'd also like to thank the chairman for his support of this bill and eloquent response on it. It's been a long 6-year journey to pass this reform. It's taken hard work and a bipartisan effort. The American people expects and deserves that. When I first came to Congress in 2006, after spending a lifetime of teaching social studies in the public school classroom, I was approached by the gentlewoman from New York, Ms. Slaughter, and Brian Baird, our former member from Washington State. He said, "You were sent here to make a difference and do things differently. If you really believe in reform, take a look at this bill." I got involved right after that, and Representative Slaughter, I can say, has been a stalwart supporter of this bill. She understood this is far more than just about clarifying insider trading. This is about restoring faith to the institution. She's done this not, ethics it seems to be in vogue right now. It's been in vogue her whole lifetime. She has lived that sermon of ethics and living by the rules instead of just giving it, and that I appreciate. Understanding the integrity of this institution stands above all else. We must, as the sacred holders of the privilege, the honor, and the responsibility given to us by our neighbors to self-govern ourselves, make sure that this institution is never tarnished. And this bill goes a long ways to doing that. I implore folks, let's come together in a bipartisan manner. And I agree with the gentlelady. I'm disappointed the political intelligence piece isn't in here. But as I said, I believe this is a first step. We can't wait for the perfect to move something forward. So I think it's a good bipartisan compromise. I implore my colleagues, join us on this first step. Give this win to the American public. And then let's get back in here, start working on jobs. Let's get back in here, start working on the national debt. Let's get back in here and figure out how we're going to protect this nation and educate our children into the future. This lets us do that. I think showing the American public we can come together. Let's get it passed. Let's have the president sign it. And let's get on to real business. So with that, I thank the gentleman for the time. Again, I thank the ranking member and members of this, and I would be remiss not to mention a person who was one of the original 7 folks on this bill. Walter Jones has been, our Republican colleague, has been a stalwart supporter of this. This is truly a bipartisan piece. Ethics crosses the aisle. Our folks in here are good people coming together for the good of their citizens, and for that I'm grateful for today. With that, Madam Speaker, I yield back my time. Last week, this House did something that should be common but is getting rarer and rarer. We passed a bipartisan piece of legislation with a vote of 417 to 2. That was the Stock Act, the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge bill, making sure that we have the audacity to say members of Congress should play by the same rules as everyone else, restoring faith in our markets. The Senate did the same thing, 96 to 3. But I remind you of those famous words from Saturday morning cartoons in Schoolhouse Rock, "I'm just a bill setting on Capitol Hill." It's not the law. There's no conference been decided yet. And the president, while in the State of the Union from that very perch, said he would sign that bill the very next day. There's nothing on the horizon bringing it up. Madam Speaker, I encourage my colleagues and I encourage all Americans to make sure they hold us accountable. Casting that vote for a bill still keeps it a bill. We need to follow through and make it the law of the land. With that, I yield back.